Good morning and welcome back to Margin. This morning, we are going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which has to do with car hacks. So let's jump right into it. So vehicle purchase is one of the biggest purchases that most people make, and you can easily make a decision that can follow you for years just because you are not educated in this area. So I wanted to jump into a theme on a topic that I absolutely love, which has to do with cars and leveraging that purchase to make sure that purchase serves you well rather than you being a slave to it. So other than the topic of giving, this is one that I absolutely love to talk to people about because it's something that I have a non-traditional approach on. It's something that I've figured out a system on that works well for me, and I believe that will actually be a benefit to you as well. So growing up, I loved everything that had to do with cars. So I remember from being a little boy, playing with my Matchbox cars, to building Lego cars, to buying car magazines and studying incessantly the stats on those cars and telling everyone about them, to actually building businesses based on detailing cars or selling car parts and things like that. So going through that process growing up and absolutely loving cars, that led right into my teen years and buying a car before I could even drive and have a license to drive that vehicle, to also going through the process of figuring out how I could purchase and improve the cars that were not only just a to B for me, but were also a source of enjoyment. And so going through that process, I always remember people telling me about how cars are a black hole, that cars are something that you buy and you drive into the ground, and from that point you have a salvage value for it, and that's it. That is what it is. And yet, as I've heard people time and time again talk about how they've lost their shirt on their cars by buying a new car and buying it high and then selling it low and using negative equity to add to another car, I just always remembered these terrible stories around people's cars. And so as I thought about it, I was like, okay, well, why are people doing this continuously, being that it's such an expensive way to operate what would be considered an asset per se? Now, that vehicle, if you are just driving it into the ground or trading it in every couple of years and losing tremendous value on it, is there a different way? And so I really started to think about, is there a different way to treat that investment, to be able to move in a direction where that investment works for you, just like any other investment? So what I went through is a long process of trial and error to figure out a system in order to turn what would typically be a something that's a depreciating asset into a system that would allow me to actually not lose any money on a vehicle. So this prompted me to really go on a journey to hack the car system, not in a nefarious way, but in a curiosity, from a standpoint of curiosity, and figuring out why this asset class in particular had such a terrible track record. So my question to myself was, could I build a systematic approach that would in turn not accept that norm related to purchasing cars and driving them into the ground, or selling them every couple years and buying something new and taking the depreciation hit on that? So I led out on a journey to figure out and to trial and error my way through the process of figuring out a system that worked best for me. So I began my journey to buy vehicles with purpose, not only to get me from point A to point B, but also from an enjoyment standpoint, also factoring in Warren Buffett's Rule 1 and 2, which comes down to not losing money. So when I was going through that process, I was trying to figure out how I could beat the system, how I could win when it came to purchasing vehicles without losing your shirt. And so as I was going through this process, I basically had a long period of trial and error all through high school and college and beyond that to basically follow this track of figuring out what to buy, how much to buy it at, and how I could add value and sell at the market price when it came time to sell it, ensuring that I would be able to then drive that vehicle for free and be able to sell it without losing money. So I've used this approach to buy and sell every vehicle I've owned with the end in sight. So beginning with the end in sight with each purchase. And I've done this with over 60 cars now. And so this has been an ongoing process. And these cars I would personally buy and I would personally drive and I would personally utilize until I decided to buy something else. And so I would go through that process and I would follow that process through. And for the most part, it's been a successful road. It's been something that as I've perfected this systematic approach to buying and selling, following the rule of not losing money and making sure to not buy high and sell low, but to buy low and sell high. This has enabled a process that has benefited me in never paying for transportation costs. So as we go through this theme on transportation, we will be going through a number of these tips and tricks related to making sure that you buy a vehicle with purpose, making sure that you are factoring in those components to ensure that that vehicle lasts as long as you need it to, and being able to not only understand how the industry works, but also where your purchase fits within not only your plan to spend, but also into your plan for margin. So my call to action today comes down to looking at your last car purchase and thinking through whether that was a positive or negative experience, and whether you walked away from there empowered based on the research that you had put into it, whether you searched for the best deal for the right vehicle, or you got sold something that you didn't necessarily walk in there to buy, and maybe some warranties that you didn't necessarily need, as well as some accessories that you weren't planning on buying. But thinking through that process and thinking through whether you would repeat that decision again today. If this information is helpful to you, please do like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you're reminded to come back on a daily basis and improve in managing your personal finances. Thank you for your time. Enjoy your day. I'll see you back here tomorrow.